Hey, this is Dr. Atkins with the Adkins Academy. Again, wanted to take the opportunity to kind of talk to you more about opportunities in nursing and healthcare, and certainly turning that into the opportunity to get into bigger just life opportunities and options like real estate. And so that's one of the things I've done. I've taken my experience in healthcare and turned that into an opportunity to get into multifamily real estate and hotel deals. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. And that's going to kind of be the goal that we talk about as well. Because I want to see more healthcare providers, more nurses, more doctors, more dentists, more pharmacists in healthcare and certainly in nursing. And so this is a great opportunity to start really getting into that. We'll hang out for a second here, just let some other people get logged in. I see there. Okay, perfect. So we're on multiple different platforms. So at Atkins Academy is the handle for our Facebook page, but also our YouTube channel as well. So definitely join in, chime in, ask questions. Certainly make this engaging an opportunity for you to get any of your questions answered. So we want to definitely answer any and all of your questions that you have. Okay, and so when it comes to certainly getting into nursing school, it's gotten very, very competitive, and so with that, you definitely want to make sure that you're doing everything that you can to certainly get past the TEAS or get past the HESI exam, so that you can obviously be successful and get into nursing school. And so just getting people logged in on our Facebook platform here and our Zoom call also. All right, so give me a second here. So perfect, good. Okay, thank you, appreciate that. All right, so good. So wanted to take the opportunity to really go over and talk more about the TEAS versus the HESI. And so that's kind of the start, right? And so in terms of getting into nursing school, and so most nursing schools around the country are going to use the TEAS test. So the TEAS test is the more prevalent, much more popular exam. And so I've been doing this for over 13, 14 years now. And I can tell you that the overwhelming majority of my students are by far requesting the TEAS test. And I've talked to several nursing school directors, nursing school professionals. And so, like I said, for the most part, most people are really using the TEAS test. Certainly, the HESI is a second player there. Now, one biggest difference that I've noticed in terms of the schools, when you look at the TEAS test versus the HESI, a lot of the LPN programs, a lot of the private school programs are using more of the HESI. Okay. Now, the thing that you want to be concerned about when it comes to the private schools and the LPN programs is the cost, right? So private schools, I mean, some private schools cost $15,000, right? Other private schools cost $150,000. So when you talk about West Coast University, $150,000 to get your BSN, right? Other schools upwards of 80, 90 $1,000. Kaiser is getting up there about 80 to 90,000, right? And so what is your best case scenario? Your best case scenario is to get into a public school that is actually a lot cheaper, right? And so with that, we'll talk about and stay to the end because we'll talk about another pathway that can actually get you into the RN profession faster, and you can start working right away. And actually, I'll show you how to get your BSN paid for. Okay, so you don't need to go right into a BSN program. You don't need to spend $150,000 to go directly into a BSN program. So definitely don't do that. Okay, so let's get back to the HESI though. So the HESI, like I said, is going to be used more for a lot of the private schools, a lot of the LPN programs, a lot of the more expensive, like I said, private schools. Students tend to do a little bit better on the HESI than they do on the TEAS, just from lots of experience of working with thousands of students. Okay, however, it's important that we are able to do well on both the TEAS and the HESI, and so we talk about how to do that, especially during the class time. Okay, yeah, feel free to chime in. Feel free to ask questions. Yep, you can absolutely do that. I got the chat box right there, so you can definitely ask questions. And so feel free to do exactly that. Yep. No, I thank you. I appreciate that. Sorry about that. Okay, and so with the like I said with the HESI. the HESI is a little bit more segmented. Sorry, I'm gonna plug this up here. So the HESI is a little bit more segmented with regard to the sections of the HESI, right? And so they actually have like 9 sections, but some schools only require you to do 4 of the 5 sections, right? For example, biology and not chemistry, or not physics, for example, or anatomy and physiology, or the English grammar, right, versus the vocabulary. Um, there may be certainly a reading section that they may require as well. So there are a couple different things there, and like I said, it depends on the school. So you got to really focus on what is it that the particular school that you're applying to wants. But what I would say is make sure that you're applying to multiple different schools. Don't just rely on one school. I don't want you to be sitting there praying, hoping, wishing that this one school accepts you. You need to be make sure that you are in the driver's seat, you are in control, and you've applied to multiple different schools. Okay, and that in fact that you've been accepted to multiple different schools. And so that's ultimately the goal, is to get accepted to multiple different schools, so that you are number one in the driver's seat. Okay, and so you're not hoping, like I said, that they accept you, but you are actually in the driver's seat, and making sure that you are the one making the decision about where you go. And so I'll show you how to do that, and we'll talk about how to do that as well. Okay, and so with that, that's pretty much like I said, the HESI. Now, when it comes to the TEAS test is going to be the bigger player, the much more popular test. Most schools are using. Most schools are using the TEAS test, and so right now we have the TEAS 7 exam, which is the new exam, and so that's been about a year or so now. One of the major changes they've made to the TEAS 7 exam is that they've added 9 questions to the English section. Right? They added 2 questions to the math section, and they actually took away questions from the reading and the science sections. And so, with that, there's obviously an emphasis on science, right? Oh, sorry, on English. Sorry, on English, right? And so they want you to be able to make sure that you can cross your T's and dot your I's, but even more so important, they want to make sure that you can write grammatically correct sentences. Okay, and so there have been a lot of complaints. Okay, that's one of the things that's one of the impetus that our components, I should say, that really spurred this change of the T7 is the fact that, hey, these SOAP notes, right? And so SOAP notes and progress notes need to be written with the grammar, or with the appropriate grammar in English, and be grammatically correct. And so there is a big emphasis on that. So not only in nursing school, but also when you get into clinical practice, because these are literally legal documents, right? That could end up before a jury or before a judge, or be interpreted by lawyers, right? And so with that, they can't have slang language and slang writing on the soap notes. And so it's very important that you are able to write in a way that is grammatically correct. Okay, and so there's a big emphasis on English for the T7 exam. Okay, and so with my course, we actually go through that. We dissect the sentences, really go through, make sure that you understand exactly how to approach the questions in the English section. You'll have the questions in front of you as we go through the questions on the whiteboard, so that's never a problem. You can actually take notes and write things down, and certainly engage. And so a lot of my students do exactly that. Okay. And so with that, with the TEAS test, the national average for the TEAS test is about a 65. And so a lot of people are not doing very well with the TEAS test, but you can certainly do well, and I'll show you how. Okay. And so, like I said, when it comes to the TEAS test, most students, hey, Arita, there you go, thank you. And so most students are certainly most schools, I should say, are using the TEAS test, and most students take the TEAS test. It's about $100 to $150, depending upon what state you're in, what school you're applying to, and even that's kind of a racket, so to speak, right? And so it just depends on what deal ATI has worked out with the school, and so depending upon the school and what deal they've worked out will dictate what price you pay for the TEAS test. Okay. But now with that, the TEAS test tends to be a lot more integrated in the way that they ask the questions, the way that you should be working through the questions. It's not just a straightforward question. It's much more integrated with multiple disciplines within one question. And so you got to prepare yourself for that. Whereas the HESI, again, tends to be a little bit more segmented. So not as integrated. However, you want to make sure that you do have a collection of knowledge, and you're able to apply your knowledge, whether we're talking about the TEAS or the HESI. Okay, so very important to certainly do that. Okay, and so with the TEAS test in particular, there are 170 questions, but they only grade, sorry about that. But they only grade 150 of those questions. Okay. And so there's 170 questions, but they only grade 150 of those questions. And so with that, then, um, what about those other 20 questions? Well, yeah, your guess is as good as mine, right? And so with that, they tend to be integrated within within the test. Um, but you don't know which ones those are. So I would say don't even think about it as 150. Just think about it as 170 questions, and make sure you do well on every single question. Okay, because certainly every single question essentially counts as far as you're concerned. Okay, and so make sure that you do attempt to get every single question correct. Okay, and yeah, feel free to chime in, Rita, or anyone else, if you have any questions. Happy to answer any questions, open-ended questions that you have there. So thank you, yep, for that. Absolutely. Okay, and so with that, which one should you take? Okay, so when it comes to the TEAS test, you're talking about a lot of the schools, the ADN programs, the BSN programs, the private schools. A lot more of these competitive schools are really utilizing the TEAS test more than you see with the HESI. Okay, but the caveat there's some places where the HESI is much more popular than the TEAS. And so when we talk about Nevada, for example, or Arizona, I actually noticed that the HESI is a little bit more prevalent there than the TEAS, even for the private schools and the public schools, the lower cost programs as well as the higher cost programs. But generally speaking, around the country, so Florida, Texas, New York, California, a lot of those schools are going to be using the TEAS test. Right, tends to be the dominant player in this space right now. Okay, and so with that, I would definitely say, with my course, we do focus on both the TEAS and the HESI. So that way, you can actually do well on both. And I've had several students who have taken my course to certainly take the TEAS as well as the HESI, and have done very well and extremely well on both. Okay, so there's certainly that opportunity to do that. Okay, but with that, when it comes to like I said, the TEAS test, you have to be able to apply your knowledge, though, and that's really important. That's what we focus on when we talk about. And so, as a medical doctor, I actually give you a lot of clinical application when it comes to the questions that we talk about and that we go over during our TEAS class. Okay, and so you'll have the opportunity to really go through real clinical questions and learn what it is that we do in terms of the medical space, in terms of healthcare delivery. And so I'll try and link those basic science concepts to real clinical patients and real clinical scenarios and pathologic scenarios as well. Okay, and so with that, the TEAS has four sections: so the science, the English, the reading, and also the math. With that, when you talk about science, is not just science; is really understanding exactly how to read the questions, how to work through the questions, but also how to apply your knowledge of the science, right? And so, even during my English class, I tend to put up some science questions, and students get it wrong, right? And so that's because it's not just about the science component of the question, but also the grammar and grammatical component of the question. So you have to identify what is the subject of the sentence, and so that's very important to be able to do. And so you have to be able to identify that. Okay, so we'll talk about that more obviously with the class. And so with that, so whether you take the TEAS or the HESI, that is, like I said, going to be very much dependent upon your program. Okay, and so LPN to RN. So someone had a question there. So thank you for that question. So LPN to RN versus going directly to an RN, I would highly, highly, highly recommend doing your RN. So this is what I was going to talk about earlier. So as mentioned earlier, in terms of a pathway that can get you there faster. So I'm glad you brought that question up. Okay, so if you are an MA, right, a medical assistant, or you are a dialysis tech, or if you are an LPN, right, or let's say a CNA. Let's say you're not even an LPN. Let's say you're an MA, you're a CNA, you're a dialysis tech or something like that. That's great. That's fine. We love you. We want you to do that. However, you have that passion for more. You have that passion to obviously move out of, say, the assisted living facility jobs, or the nursing home jobs, and you really want to make your way into the hospital, you want to make that RN money, right? And certainly become a travel nurse or do more in healthcare, then don't go directly to the LPN. I would actually not recommend that, right? I've heard of LPN programs costing $30,000, which is just mind blowing to me, right? And so, because you barely make that as an LPN sometimes, right? Depending on where you are, and certainly starting out, you're not going to make that, right? So, a lot of these LPNs that are working in the hospital, that those are ones that have gotten lucky because the hospitals are actually doing away with a lot of the LPNs and LVNs, right? And in fact, California doesn't hire any LPNs and LVNs anymore. Okay, and so you're finding that across the country, though. Okay, so with that, right, with that, I would say if you are a CNA, if you are an MA, right, go directly into, here's the secret here, go directly into the ADN program. So the associate's degree in nursing. Okay. They're not going to tell you that the these counselors at these LPN programs, the counselors at the MA programs, right? In fact, like I said, this past weekend, I had two students call me up. One was trying to get into an MA program, the other an LPN program. I told them, don't do it, don't do it, don't waste your money. $30,000 for for those programs. Don't waste your money. Okay, so instead, go directly into an ADN program. They're like, well, what's an ADN program? So an ADN program is an associate's degree in nursing. So the associate's degree in nursing. And so with the associate's degree in nursing, that allows you to go directly into nursing school that ultimately results in an associate's degree. And that associate's degree, once you finish that, then you can go directly into taking the NCLEX exam. So the NCLEX RN, not the NCLEX PN, the NCLEX RN, and you're at that point a registered nurse. You can easily get a job in the hospital. You can work in local, metropolitan hospitals, but also rural hospitals. You can also work in nursing homes. You can also work in assisted living facilities with your RN, right, as an ADN, associate's degree in nursing. Now, the associate's degree in nursing program is going to be the same cost or similar cost to that of the LPN. So wait a minute. Why are we going for the LPN? When the ADN is the same cost as the LPN, and as an LPN, you're only, you're barely making it. You're not really able to get a job in the hospital. You're not really able to advance as quickly and as much, right? You're very much so limited, right? Whereas as an ADN with, as an associate, as an RN, I should say, with your ADN, you can go directly into the hospital and start working, right? You're in high demand, right? And so I would highly recommend doing the ADN program, right? And in fact, I would recommend doing the ADN program over not only the LPN, not only the MA, but also the BSN. Okay, here's why. I told you I'm gonna help you save some money and save some time today. Okay, and so here's why. So if you go directly into an ADN program after you do, your CNA, you don't even have to be a CNA. You don't have to be an LPN. You don't have to be a MA. So don't believe that lie either. So some of these programs say you have to have this in order to get into an ADN program or in order to get a BSN program. You do not. You need to have your prerequisites. So you need to do your prerequisites. Okay. And so the prerequisites would be general chemistry, general biology, anatomy and physiology, college English, college math. Some schools want you to have micro, some schools want you to have statistics, right? The more competitive schools. But with that, I would highly recommend, right, doing the ADN. And here's why. Okay. Because if you do have, like I said, your prerequisites done, whether you have that plus your CNA or plus your MA, you can go directly into an ADM program and then get a job in the hospital, start working, start making money. Okay. Once you do that, any hospital that you go to, they will pay for you to get your BSN. If they are not going to pay for you to get your BSN, find another hospital that will. Okay, and so with that, that's a part of your negotiating tactic, right? Is to actually find a hospital that will pay for you to get your BSN, and so they will pay for your classes. Oh, wait a minute! By the way, while you're still working at that hospital, so you're working, making money, and also having the hospital pay for you to get your BSN, right? And so a lot of these hospitals have a shortage of nurses, staff nurses, because those staff nurses that are already there, they're leaving those jobs and going to work with travel agencies, right? Agencies as travel nurses because they make more money, right? So making $5,000-$6,000 a week instead of $5,000-$6,000 a month. Okay, and so if you're going to make 3-4 times what you normally make as a staff nurse, what would you do, right? Of course, right? You would go be a travel nurse. But now that's getting more competitive and all of that, right? So I would say if you go directly into an ADM program, start working with the hospital, give them 2, 3 years of your time, right? So sign on with them for 2 or 3 years. But a part of that contract, a part of that negotiation needs to be that they will pay for your BSN. And so get them to pay for your BSN. Once you're done with that, then you can go, you're off to the races. Okay. And so that's going to save you a lot of time, but also a lot of money as well. And so instead of, like I said, going from an MA or a CNA to an LPN to an ADN to a BSN, don't waste the time, right? And so go directly from being either nothing, right? No prerequisites, no anything, to take the prerequisites, go directly to an ADN. Or maybe you got your CNA, go from the CNA, go directly to the ADN, right? Again, don't even do the BSN. I mean, it's fine if you want to do the BSN, if you already have a job and they're willing to pay for your BSN, or you just really want to do the BSN, you got a great segue into that. Or you can go directly into a hospital. Maybe you want to go to Cedar Sinai Hospital, and there's a segue from UCLA to Cedar Sinai. Then sure, definitely do that. But you got to kind of examine what are your goals and what is that you actually want to do, that's going to set you up for that, for that particular position, right? But most nurses that I know, they're like, I don't care where I work, right? Which is fine, right? And so if you're willing to travel, you're willing to work anywhere, you're willing to go to different cities and stuff like that, then hey, like just go do your ADN, right? Put in your time at the hospital, get them to pay for your BSN, and then go directly into whatever else you want to do. Okay, so that's kind of my advice there in terms of going from an LPN to an RN, or going directly into the RN program. I would say go directly into the RN program. Don't even waste your time with the LPN. Right. Right now, LPNs are being phased out. So again, there is a need for LPNs in the nursing home space, the assisted living facilities. Certainly, as you all know, baby boomers are getting older. About 10,000 last time I looked at, 10 to 11,000 per day. Right, 10 to 11,000 people per day are turning 65 and older. And so certainly, yes, there is a big need for people, and nurses, I should say, so LPNs and skilled nurses to be in that space in the nursing homes. But like I said, I mean, with your RN, you can work in both the hospital, but also the nursing home. In fact, you can be a charge nurse. You can have your own nursing home facility. Okay, and so speaking of that, that's a part of what I've done with a couple of my previous students who have gotten their RN. Okay, and so I've actually partnered with some of my students to actually go in with them on the real estate side of things, while they actually manage the assisted living facility portion of it. And so that is an opportunity there as well. And so with that, in our last couple of minutes here, let's get into that. As an American, right? As a person who has, gone after the American dream. You go to school, go to work, get a good job. That's what we were all trained to do, right? Well, at the end of the day, I mean, that caps you at a certain salary. That caps you at a certain income, right? So maybe you make 30,000, maybe you make 80,000, maybe you make 150,000, right? That's good money. It's great, right? But you're going to pay half that salary in taxes, right? And so the more you make, the more taxes you pay, right? But in addition to that, at some point you're capped, right? And so you only have so many hours in the day. You only have so many things you can do. So with that, the real American dream is financial freedom, and that ability to be able to do what you want, when you want, how you want, where you want, right? And so how do you get there? Well, you have to strategize a plan that will help you to get out of the rat race, so to speak, right? And so you can't just work, 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 work. You have to be able to invest. And so part of that is the strategy there is taking your earned income and turn it into passive income through real estate. And for me, that's been multifamily real estate and hotel deals, but also, like I said, assisted living facilities and mainly partnerships there. And so I've gone in and kind of worked the deal on the real estate side, and have students of mine and colleagues of mine to actually run the assisted living side of things. And so if you're looking for that opportunity, let's definitely talk more about that. Because like I said, when it comes to healthcare, so medical doctors, dentists, nurses, pharmacists, we are all professionals, and we all do a very great job and do a lot to help people and to help our community. And so why not also be able to build generational wealth while we do that, right? And so there is that opportunity to certainly make a lot of money in healthcare, make enough money to be able to take some of that money and put it into real estate that would then start to generate passive income. And so now you're working right in healthcare because you want to, not because you have to. Right. And so there's a big difference between getting up and going to work because you have to versus getting up and going to work because you want to. And so I know we don't always want to go to work, right? We don't always love it every single day, right? Even though this is our passion. But certainly when you have that ability to say, hey, I'm going to work instead of working 60 hours a week this year, I'm only going to work 40, right? Because we don't normally work, the regular 40 hours. We work more like 60 hours, right? But instead of working 60 hours, I'm going to work 40. Okay, instead of working 40, I'm only going to do part time, right? Well, how do you do that when it's like, okay, well, I'm going to lose half my salary if I do that? Well, great, not a big deal. If you have passive income to support that, right? And so that lack of salary that you're not getting because you're not working 60 hours a week, can you make that up with passive income? And so that becomes the question. And so the answer is yes, you can. Right. And so you have to look for opportunities to do that. And that's what I've done. Okay. And so I can share my story about that a little bit more. And we can talk more about that in another podcast also. But I love to talk more about that. And certainly, if you're interested in that, let me know. Certainly, make put a comment below. Let's talk about it. We can have a whole segment on that. I can bring in investors and stuff like that as well. You can kind of talk to them also. Okay, but certainly recognize that the American dream is about much more than just working, right, enslaving, but it's also about having and building generational wealth through financial freedom. And so one of the best ways to do that is through real estate. Okay. All right. So good. So hopefully that really gives you a firm understanding of, like I said, the T's versus the HESI, and how to which one should you take. It depends on, like I said, the school that you're applying to. And then also, like I said, you want to, what I would recommend is certainly maybe possibly looking at taking both so that you can have multiple different options. You want to have multiple different options. You don't want to just have one option, right? You don't want to just hope and pray that this one school will let you in, but instead, let's actually look at 4 or 5 or 6 different schools, and let's get accepted to all of those schools so that you're in the driver's seat, right? And you're not you're not hoping that this one school lets you in. Now, like I said, if you're trying to apply to a Sac State or Emory or Texas Women's University, all of which use the TEAS test, by the way, and extremely competitive programs, you need to be in the high 80s to 90s, and I would say preferably the 90s for those schools. Again, TEAS test, right? Then yeah, I mean, if that's your one school, then yeah, let's definitely do that, right? I'll help you to get your score into the 80s or 90s, right? I can help you to do that. We have our TEAS test prep course. We have classes every Sunday and every single Wednesday throughout the entire year. And so with my class, you can start at any point. You can start this Sunday, next Wednesday, whenever you're ready to get started. Okay. And so you got to go above and beyond just using the book, by the way, right? Because again, the national average for the TEAS test is about a 65. For the HESI, it's estimated to be in the 60s as well. And so with it, if you're just using the books, just using what's out there, good luck. Okay. It's not very helpful for most people. Okay. And so with it, I would say you got to go above and beyond. And so I've been doing this for over 15 years now, 14, 15 years now, helping over 5,000 students to get into nursing school. And I can help you to do the same thing. Okay. So definitely DM me below, make a comment, go to our website, adkinsacademy.com, reach out to me directly, 301-960-4950. I'll put a link in the bottom for the for the website, as well as the phone number. But feel free to reach out to me anytime. I'm happy to have a personal conversation with you. Love to certainly provide you with education, provide you with insight, and just help you to get to that next level. Because that's what it's about for me. It's about helping you to get to that next level. And so anything I can do to do that, then I'm happy to do it. Okay. And so actually, Arita's in our class, and thank you for attending, Arita, the live session. Love to answer your questions, and Arita will tell you that we go through lots of questions and dissect them down and really go through it. I know it's sometimes intense, but that's what you need, right? Because I want you to do well. I need you to do well. It doesn't benefit me nor does it benefit you to take my class and get into the 40s or 50s or 60s. You can do that on your own. You don't need me for that. Okay. And so with that, definitely take the next step, take the next leap, and to get into nursing school, right? Get into an ADN program, not an LPN program, not an MA. Don't even waste your time with those, right? That's way too much money, way too much time. And what are you going to do? Practice for 4 or 5 years as an LPN or an MA? Waste your time and then ultimately realize that, hey, I really need to do this. Need to do this ADN. That's what happens with most people. They waste a lot of time. Okay. All right. So with that, don't want to hold you any longer. That's our time for the day. But please feel free to reach out to us, 301-960-4950. Thanks a lot, everyone. Dr. Atkins with the Adkins Academy, atkinsacademy.com. We'll see you.